This is amazing to see so many faces and all over the world. It's just fantastic. Thank you so much for coming. And I was just talking to Nicola before you all came in we were talking about the perfectionism and how, it can be a real problem for a lot of us to want everything to be perfect. But I certainly want to try and combat that in my work, and that's one of the reasons I created this program. Actually, was to use it as an experiment, just play with some ideas and see if any of them stick. And let me know if Annika Thun has joined, Nicola, please, because I've actually invited one of the participants from the program today, and so she'll be coming in from Perth, Western Australia. And so, thank you. So, my name is Genevieve Hodge, and yes, I'm Australian, and I'm currently living in Italy because my husband is Italian. So I live in the beautiful Emilian-Romagnan hills, countryside between Ravenna and Bologna. I have 10 years experience in leadership development, mainly in Australia. And I worked with university students, I've worked with teenagers, and now because I'm working from home in Italy, I decided that I'd like to start working with young professionals. And yeah, I decided to sort of stretch myself and challenge myself a little bit last year, and thought, I wonder if I can create a virtual leadership program and for my clients in Australia. So this was, part of the whole theme of playing with ideas and experimenting with what I can do and what might work. And I'd had this idea for the impactors for quite some time. I've been thinking, I'd love to create a leadership program called the Impactors. And so I started to, with my aunt's help, by the way, Alison Hodge, Dr. Alison Hodge is my aunt, and she came to visit in Italy, and I said, I'm thinking of this idea. And so she helped me to conceptualize it. And I launched it in February this year, and it concluded just a couple of weeks ago. So it's literally fresh off the bat. and back in last year, I was really sort of, I don't know if this is going to work, but let's just give it a try. And now I can tell you all, it worked. It was a great success. In terms of the growth of the participants, in terms of their personal and professional development. So upon hearing their reflections of the program, I now can see that, yes, it was really, really great. And I'm really relieved about that because, as I said, I had no idea if it would work. And so who were the students? The students were participants that I'd actually worked with 10 years ago when I was at Curtin University in Perth, Western Australia. And so I knew that I loved working with those bright, young, ambitious people. And so I started to contact them and say, hey, look, I'm thinking of doing this pilot program. Would you be interested? And offered them a good discount to do so. I had 4 participants register in the beginning. I was hoping for more, but 4 was a great start. However, one pulled out early, and then another withdrew halfway due to her commitments at NASA. So that was a shame, but she's still heavily involved with this program in terms of supporting her other colleagues who did go on to finish the program. So when planning the program, I decided to create a 3-month program and in 3 phases. The first phase was called the stock take, so where they would take a deep dive into where they are now in their professional careers. So the age range is sort of, I was aiming for was around 27 years old to about 35, So early career, early leadership, or aspiring leaders. And the first phase was called the stock take, where we did a deep dive into themselves, where they are now, where they want to go, and how to get them there. We used a personality profiling called TIC profiles, which is not as robust as MBTI or DISC. However, it's fun. It uses birds. I'm not sure if you've heard of it. It's fantastic for young people because they're like, oh yes, I'm an eagle, I'm a dove, I'm a peacock, and so it helped them to use sort of fun language. And as we're playing, we're having fun with all of this. That's what I wanted them to be having fun with themselves as well, and looking at their strengths and their areas of development and values and action and their ikigai. So we did quite a lot of that in the first month. The second phase of the program was where the students were asked to create an intervention in their lives, in their work life or in their community life, in which they needed to plan and implement a project, a small project, where they would see some kind of positive impact. And so that was really exciting to support both of these two young women in their intervention projects. But I won't go into all the details of what they did because that's another day. Today, what I really wanted to share with you was my learnings of using the inner development goals as part of this program. Now, I am certainly not the expert in the IDGs, so I hope you're not here to learn from an expert by any means, because I'm not. I just am here to share with you some of what I experienced with the IDGs. And because I'd had a colleague visit me from Australia last year, and she said, oh, Genevieve, have you heard about the IDGs? And I was like, what is that? I didn't even know what it was. And then when I started to do the Googling and researching, I was extremely impressed because for those of you that don't know what it is, they were developed in response to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, you see, that were developed to tackle 17 of the world's greatest challenges, such as climate change, gender inequality, education, things like that. And so I am quite familiar with the SDGs, but I didn't realize that they weren't progressing as fast as they were aiming for. 2030 is meant to be the year that they make the greatest progress with those big challenges facing the world. So they developed these IDGs, inner development goals, as a framework to help human beings improve their inner worlds, obviously, because they realized, these people in Stockholm in Sweden realized that the biggest problems facing the globe is the human beings, and it's us, and it's our lack of the inner growth that is preventing the growth of the SDGs. Okay, and so anyway, the more I heard about it, I was like, wow, this is phenomenal. I really would love to incorporate it into the Impactor program. But heck, I don't really know much about it. I should invite someone to help me. So I invited this wonderful colleague that I met in one of the IDG practitioner groups that I joined back early in January. And her name was Dr. Sybil Brenner. And I said, Sybil, would you like to come and join me and run a presentation for my students about this program, about the IDG, sorry. Because she had left corporate life in order to pursue the IDGs. She sees such great value in them that she's committing her professional work towards it. And so she came on to one of the sessions. When was it? Early on in the program, and gave a presentation to the participants about what the IDGs were, and used an activity that she had created herself, which was to look at a challenge or a problem that she had experienced through the lens of the IDG framework. Okay, and I'm going to show some slides in a minute so you can see what I'm talking about here. And the students were then asked to then do the same. So think of a challenge that they had recently experienced, whether it be at work or in their personal life, and then to use the IDG framework as a lens to examine the problem and reflect. And it was very, very powerful. And so that I wanted to use that as one example. And also I used the IDGs framework in the post-project reflection as well, so that the participants would look at the whole program that they had just completed, you know, the impactor program and the project they'd just done, and look at it through the lens of the IDGs as well, through the being, the thinking, the doing, all this, which I'll show you in a minute. So I also got the students to do a pre and post self-assessment of where they rank themselves on a scale of 1 to 10, where they rank themselves in relation to each of the IDG sub points. And so I was able to then do a pre and post analysis of hopefully their growth in that area. And you'll see now I'm going to share some slides in order to show the growth that they did have. Now, as I'm speaking, I would love you to please, if you have any ideas on how I could be improving upon what I present to you in terms of what I'm incorporating into this program, if you have any ideas of who I should speak to or activities I could include in the future, because I really am in that learning phase of running this program. You know, I've only run it once. Yes, it was a great success, but the next time I do it in September, I'm planning to run it again in September. I want to make it even better and to refine the activities. So please feel free to share any ideas or thoughts you have, okay? And in the breakout room as well, we'll do that in a minute. So I'd like to share my screen with you so that you can just get a visual, because I'm quite a visual person, for those visual people in the room. So this is the little presentation that my virtual assistant helped me with, because she's very good at, making things look very pretty. So this was the Impactor program that I designed. And these are the inner development goals, if you've never seen them before, okay? And so there's 5 columns, and one is being, relationship to self. And look at these, as a coach, as coaches, this is the work we are doing, right? So as soon as I saw this, I was like, this is the work, this is the world that I want to be part of. And having this kind of framework was really beneficial. So inner compass, integrity, authenticity, openness, learning mindset, self-awareness, all these kinds of things. Then there's the thinking, the relating, the collaborating, and the acting. Okay, so they are the IDGs. And if you go on their website, they actually have lots of tools and activities to use. But I ended up not needing to use it, because I ended up using what Dr. Sybil Brenner had done. Now, this is a little quote that one of the participants said. This framework looks at key skills and qualities that we need in order to be successful at working towards challenges. Looking at my problem through the lens of the inner development goals framework helped me understand the problem and help me narrow my focus in my intervention planning. I use the IDGs as a reflective tool to help me think through situations and what specific qualities or skills I could work on developing or should have better used in that scenario. So for her, it was very useful. Now, this graph relates to the pre and post survey, not related to the IDG. Sorry, this is just related to their leadership growth pre and post program. But you can see that the Annika, who I have invited today, she grew the most in this program. But it's really
Annika's just joined, I think. Sorry, I just interjected. Sorry.
Annika, are you here? Unmute yourself. Say hello.
Hello, everyone. I am so sorry I'm a little late. The traffic was crazy today. There was a road accident on the way. So
Annika, I'll just quickly finish this slide, and then I'll invite you to please speak about your experience. So you haven't seen this yet, Annika, because they're literally hot off the press, but this is the comparison between the pre and post with regards to your leadership skills. So here you can see that goal setting grew the most, next to self-confidence and decision making. So, you know, as young leaders, this is very reassuring data for me. Then we looked at the inner development goals. So I literally had each of those ones that you saw before, and they had to self-rate on a scale of 1 to 10. And you can see in white is the pre-scores and in the post. So they've all grown almost, you know, in exactly the same. So it's great, very reassuring to see that they have grown. 16% being, 15% thinking. And here, this is where we go into each of the actual columns. So this is the being column. And so the pre and post you can see in yellow and white, and the pink. The top 3 skills that they grew in were self-awareness, openness, and integrity. So that's great. And then we have the IDG thinking. So perspective skills grew the most. Look at that, 33%. So that's really fantastic that they're getting greater perspective on their problems, on their challenges that they're facing. Of course, all of this was facilitated by me as the coach, you know, checking on them and making sure that they were really reflecting on what had happened and things like that. But they did these activities at home alone first, with the challenge that they were facing, and then came and shared it. So I could see that it certainly is a valuable tool to use. That's my sort of final note, is that I would highly recommend other coaches and leadership trainers to consider using these. Now, Annika, I've got this whole page is what you have said. So I had that as a backup in case you weren't, you know, able to join us this morning, but you are actually here. So I might just stop this slide and invite you, please, to share in real time your experience of using the IDGs and the Impactor program. Yes.
Thank you for having me, Jen, and thank you everyone for your patience. So I went through the Impactor program with Jen, and it was actually life-changing for me because I actually get to explore myself and really understand my, you know, the inner triggers as well as my strengths and weaknesses. And I am a very reflective person. I do journal a lot, and I do look at myself, you know, in a sense that I want to develop and grow. However, I have never really seen the in-depth reflective perspective as when I was using the IDG, because it really challenged the way that I am thinking, the decisions that I'm making, like, you know, the value that I have set, it actually put a different light and angle on why am I having all those values. And it really allowed me to dive deep within. And at the same time, like, you know, some of the problems that I was going through, challenges that I was facing through the program, as we picked up one of the projects that we wanted to work on, I see things from a different angle and perspective, and question the situations in a different angle as well. And for me, it was a different experience because I've never used IDG before. And even when I was utilizing different reflective methods, that was very different. And Jen also introduced us to the action learning little module during the program as well, where we are putting ourselves in a third person perspective and try to work through, like, you know, why when we are facing this problem, how we have solved it if we were a different person and stuff. And that really highlighted a completely different perspective to me. I am a problem solver, so I tend to, like, you know, solve problems straight away. Like, okay, this problem come up, what is the next solution? However, I never thought of, like, you know, problem focus perspective rather than solution focused perspective. And that really, really changed my leadership journey a lot as well. So I really thank Jen for this and for exposing me to the IDGs as well. And nowadays I have been utilizing that in a lot of my analysis, in a lot of my reflective side of things and problem solving side of things. And I find it very, very useful. And of course, like Jen's brilliant coaching really changed my perspective and archetype and the way that I see myself as well. So I am forever grateful.
Fantastic, Annika. Thank you so much. I know that for other coaches in the room, it's really, they can hear from me say, yes, it works, it's great, but to actually hear it from the participant, it's you give it a lot more weight. So thank you so much for sharing that. Nicola, I would love everyone to have a moment to go into a breakout room if they are wanting to, and to maybe share some, what they are thinking about the IDGs, maybe any questions they might have from what they've heard so far, that Annika and myself can answer once we come back.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. I've popped in the chat. I've popped another link to the IDGs website, but I've also grabbed your I screen grabbed your chart with the 5 columns, and I've put that into the chat as well. So hopefully everybody can see that as well. So you've got something to take with you when you go into the breakout rooms.
The question is, what questions do you have about what I've done, and any questions you might have for Annika as well, and any thoughts or insights that you'd love to share to help me to improve this for next time. Thank you. Oh, I wish I could have been in everyone's room and just been a fly on everyone's room and heard the discussions. Please share. I would love to hear from you.
So the question I asked was, in your presentation, you mentioned you talked to 27 to 35-year-olds. Was that just your take on the model, or is it aimed at that age group?
Oh, no. It's not aimed at that model age group. Sorry, no, definitely not. That's just who I want to be working with. So my sort of ideal client, as you would say, that's who I like to work with. But you could use this with any age group.
Okay, thank you.
And Genevieve, actually, that's a very interesting kind of segue coming from that question there in relation to age group. In our group, we spoke about, ourselves as coaches, obviously being familiar with the language around inner development, whatever, but how the challenges that maybe you might have faced of kind of even getting the people into the room, first of all, to be able to talk about inner development, and the age may have an impact on that, actually.
Well, I guess because they signed up to the program to grow as young professionals, they wanted to learn, they want to progress, they want to become the best versions of themselves. So that's why I kind of enjoy working with that age group, because it's they're so engaged and wanting to learn.
I was curious about an example of intervention that the ladies created.
Okay, so my I'll get Annika to speak to you as well about this, Annika, if you don't mind. But my request was that they come up with something in their life, whether it be professional life or personal life, in which they wanted to create positive change. So it could be, so one of the participants that's not here today, she works in a very busy hospital as an occupational therapist, and she realized that she wanted to step it up as a leader at work, and so she was trying to be more strategic at work and how she could solve a problem. So she realized that that there was a big gap of skill development for the new OTs versus the more experienced ones. So she created a training package and a competency checklist, and then she actually rolled it out while we were working together. So she got to trial it. So that was just her example. I'll let Annika talk about hers.
So the project I did work with the IDG on several different areas. Like I was working with my personal challenges that I wanted to solve. I was involved in a lot of boards as well. So one of the board problem, I actually tried to use the IDG to resolve it as well. The project that I worked on was because on the boards, we don't really have a lot of diversity and inclusion in terms of cultural and linguistically diverse people. And especially I'm originally from Burma, Myanmar background. So our boards, community and not-for-profit boards are usually led by very experienced, very aged senior members of our community. And now that they are stepping down, we don't really have that required skills to step up onto the board. And we don't have anybody who are sufficiently skilled to step into those roles and stuff. So I created a little program where young people will be able to upskill themselves, have the board experience, be mentored by the experience, and step into these roles so that they will be able to make community and the different aspects of the community impact on these communities in Australia, the Burmese communities in Australia. So that was my project. And along the project, I did face challenges, as in like originally I was planning on a smaller group of audience to participate in the program. However, later down the track, I actually came up with a load of like expression of interest and like, you know, how to engage with them, how to make sure that I can continue their interest, and also like how to manage things, how to do the quality control, essentially the entire project. At each point, I do reflect and I do relate it back to IDGs. And then I try to like problem solve it at every stage and stuff. And throughout the program, I did that with my the other lady who was participating, and also Jen coaching me through these IDGs and all these stuff. So I did get a chance to, how do I say, explore on a personal level, professional level, as well as on my project as well. I wonder if I'm answering your question.
So Annika, what with your intervention, you, just to quickly summarize, she developed a program, like a leadership program, to upskill young Burmese people to become board members in the future. So she created like a succession planning leadership program. It's phenomenal. But they could have done anything in the intervention. Anything really. What I wanted to see from them was, you know, because the name of the program is The Impactors, I wanted them to be creating positive impact in their world. So it was really, and during the month of the second month, which was the implementation of the intervention, they we did what's called action learning sessions, which is Annika did touch upon before, which is where someone sits in the hot seat with their problem or challenge that they are experiencing, and then other participants need to ask very clever questions to help that person see the perspective from see the problem from different perspectives. And Annika mentioned that it was a very powerful experience for her because she learned how to not just go straight to solution mode, which is something that she'd often done before, but to be more in the helping the person find their own solutions through clever questioning.
Then my question, what I'm thinking about is, I mean, to make it, if you want to do more research around this, I mean, I think you would, I have a background in science, in molecular biology, so I am quite, you know, you need to have a control group. So I would like to see also in parallel with the results you have from your kind of focused coaching where you use the goals, another coaching where either you or some, it should be maybe you coaching, but where you don't use it, and then see what is the difference, because then you could say that the impact of this is really what you see in the group where you use the goals.
Interesting.
If you don't have that, it's like, okay, well, yeah, you see what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
it's not easy. It's not easy to do it. That's why I'm not so keen on doing research in coaching.
But I'm not here to really prove anything. Yeah. I don't need to be saying that it is the defining factor in the success. I'm just saying it was a great tool, and it helped the reflection period and can support us coaches.
Okay, thank you.
But thank you. If I was going down the PhD route or something, I would certainly have to do that, wouldn't I?
I can see Elizabeth, Elizabeth, her hand. Go, Elizabeth.
I was wondering how much coaching was involved and how you designed it, and was it one-to-one? Was it always with participants together?
So it was 2 hours a week. We met 2 hours a week every Tuesday, their evening, my morning, and sometimes if one of the people couldn't join, it would be just one-on-one. But other times it was in that group environment where there was the 3 of us or 4 of us at the beginning. There was more, and I think they enjoyed having extra people to bounce ideas off and get different perspectives off, because I always invited people to share what they thought about things and ideas. And you can see that Annika is such a deep, reflective person. I think Annika, I think you did help the other participant who is not naturally such a reflective person. So.
Jen, do you actually went into individual coaching sessions with each of us as well, with our own individual personal problems? Like as a group, we discuss about the project and then the program. However, individually, we discuss about our personal challenges and like things that we wanted to learn and grow as well.
Are you happy to share that, Annika, or is it too private to share?
Oh no, I'm happy to share as well.
Only what you feel comfortable with.
Oh no, that's okay. So naturally, I am a very kind and considerate person because of my cultural background and upbringing. So I tend to accommodate to a lot of people around me, the needs of other people, and I always put other people before me. And I was reaching to a point where I was starting to feel very, very depleted within myself, and I don't leave enough energy for myself, and I didn't know how to deal with it. So I had to reach out to Jen for a bit of coaching session to see what sort of interventions I would be able to lean onto. And I wasn't aware of why I was doing what I was doing. And Jen guided me through her coachings to identify the challenges that I was having, the root motivation for my choices, and the little small steps that I will be able to take in order to overcome, those challenges and stuff as well. So at the end of the program, I personally grew, not only professionally and career-wise, but also in the professional development wise as well. So we did have individual coaching sessions as such, but I think other participants also went through imposter syndromes and all different challenges that they are going through life. So
I've now realized that this is exactly the target market that I want to be working with, the ideal client, because I realized that I really loved supporting young professional women, especially into leadership. I've realized that is my happy place to be working with you amazing young people. Any other questions?
I think Claire was next.
We were wondering how you were able to do the measuring, the progress, how you were able to measure the progress, how to assess the competencies.
Yes, I literally, I listed them all out, and I just put a scale of 1 to 10. So then they had to self-assess how confident and competent they felt in that area. Now, let me share something that I didn't tell you before, which I think is a really interesting thing to note. Of course, people are going to change. So just because in this moment, confident in self-awareness doesn't mean that tomorrow or next week or next month or next year they will feel the same. So it really is a dynamic and sorry, one of the other things I want to mention is in one of the IDG practitioner sessions, they actually questioned whether people should be using it as a tool to be reporting on, like doing the self-assessment, and should it be a reporting tool? I say yes, because for me it was very useful as the program manager to see the growth of them in those different areas. However, I can also agree that maybe over a year, if you were to do it pre and post, things change so quickly. And it's not just because of the leadership program itself. It might be other things going on in their life. So it's not a completely robust system, is what I'm trying to say, but it helped me.
But it's based only on self-assessment.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Do you know, I'm curious, as before we go to Toby, does anybody have any other input? I mean, on that assessment part, which Claire and Jen have been speaking about, does anybody have anything which they'd like to contribute, which is maybe some suggestions for that assessment?
Maybe it should not be only self. The people that they are dealing with them, they should as well assess them to see. But I believe that it's a bit subjective and it might be biased because it's so, the competencies are not something that you can assess them easily. It is subjective for me.
Annika, as a participant, how did you feel in the assessing? And
because a lot of the issues that I was coming to Jen with for the coachings are for the project, and I had a job move during the program as well, so I was using the IDG to reflect on my experience and thought versus what happened through the IDG process as well. And I wrote a really long, like nearly 3 pages kind of report to explain to Jen, like, this is what I thought happened, and this is my motivation, and this is why I did what I did. But using the IDG, I realized that the reason why I made that decision at that point in time is because of this. And going forward, this is what I'm going to do. And this is how I plan to do going forward and stuff. So it really made me think introspectively from a very different perspective. It was very difficult to explain in words. It is just like, it is very different from how I would normally reassess and reflect myself and plan going forward, but utilizing the tool is slightly different. I think one of the participants was going through a job change as well, and she was trying to secure a promotion. And through the coaching session and through the IDGs and stuff as well, I think she managed to she managed to get that permanent position as well. So if we are measuring with the tangible kind of results in terms of how it would impact, we will have to use like Lauren as an example, I guess. But if we are thinking more like intrinsic values, or the actual value that has a personal impact on me personally and professionally, I would use me as an example, I guess.
But how about the actual assessment pre and post?
Pre, I would say there are a lot of questions that I would confidently say, yep, I'm okay with this and stuff. But that is very different from when I was exposed to different coaching methods that Jen was using and IDGs that came in and all these stuff. So by the time that I reached to the end of the program, my reflection on those questions are through a different type of lenses. So things that I would be like, oh yeah, I'm quite confident before, it's very, very different because I was in a different set of, mindset and kind of like frame of thoughts. Whereas after being exposed to all this and reassessing myself and doing the deep reflections and all these stuff, the way that I see things is completely different at the end. So when I actually had to rate, it is, a true reflective kind of thing, like, okay, I have grown this much during this program and this is how I feel and stuff.
Can I share my screen of what the questionnaire looked like so that you can actually see? Just give me a second. I think it might be useful for people to actually see. So this was the post-program survey that I sent out. So here is regarding being. Okay, so being the first pillar column on the IDG framework, and it says in relationship to self, inner compass, having a deeply felt sense of responsibility and commitment to values and purposes relating to the good of the whole. 1 being very low and 10 being very high, and so that that's how I was able to measure it. Okay, so I gave them this at the beginning of the program, and then I gave them this at the end of the program. So 3-month time difference. Integrity and authenticity, openness and learning mindset. So there was quite a few. There's quite a few. But I know for the scientists in the room that this it's not so rigorous, because we didn't have the 360. We didn't have their managers assessing them and their peers assessing them. It was just self-assessment. But I still think it's still valid. Toby?
Thanks, Genevieve. Thanks for the presentation. I work in international development and then also as a coach and involved in some meditation work as well. And so this kind of resonates from lots of different angles in terms of the SDGs, from the international development side, and then this kind of personal development stuff from the coaching. Yes. I was interested in whether whether your methodology, like how you did it, how you actually did the work, was all about kind of, I guess, more traditional kind of reflection and discussion and questions and talking things through, or any of it was more like experiential. So, when you think about like the being part, whether meditation came into it, for example, just as a one idea, because or like the collaborating, like whether there was actually help supporting people to work with others, or is it more about kind of people thinking about it themselves and then going away and doing it elsewhere?
Yeah, I think that would be a cool thing to think about for my next program, because I didn't do it per se, like, okay, now we're going to all meditate, or I didn't do it like that, but I did incorporate some meditating in the when we were looking at one activity. What was it, Annika? Was it the North
It's the mindset, the North Star mindset, where you are visualizing.
But one of the participants didn't like it, and that actually was a really that's the first time I've ever had a client in real time say they don't enjoy doing that deep guided visualization. For me, that's actually a very powerful tool that I do usually use with my clients, and she didn't enjoy it at all. And I could see her sort of get all tense and say, no, it's not something I feel comfortable with. And so in the moment I was like, okay, maybe it's not going to be the best for you, but I could see that Annika really enjoys that kind of methodology. So as a coach, I'm having to adapt to different people and do in the moment adapt. So I think it is something that I could suggest to them as well. Maybe that's something that they could do in order to grow that part of themselves.
Thank you.
I've got a bit come through the chat actually, from Emma. She was asking about could you talk us through how you coached individuals using the IDGs? But then she goes on to say she's interested in how then you would apply that learning to professionals who want to develop their leadership skills, but perhaps who are lacking in confidence and worried about how they're perceived. And I was thinking about Annika's sharing her experiences as well about her own, putting others first as well, which I guess is another perception thing. So, I think it's a big question. How did you do it? But and how do you
the activity that Sybil introduced my participants to, and which I then created a worksheet around, and I've got it here. That was the really useful way for me as a coach, because that was some homework that they had to do. So first of all, they had to write 2 pages on the following. Reflect on a very challenging situation which you experienced recently, and take an emotional deep dive into that situation and try to immerse yourself in the memory and how you currently feel experiencing the situation. And so they had to think about, when did the event happen? What exactly happened? What did the place look like? Remembering colors, sounds, smells, who else was present, and what was your role to play? And so they then used, these different pillars to then examine that problem or challenge that they're experiencing with. And that's how I was able to then coach them, you see, because then when they came back with the paper, with the actual document that they'd typed out, the reflection, I was then able to then sort of go deeper and go, okay, so what happened here, what happened there? So they had to also reflect on these following questions, which was, which IDG skills or categories were involved in that situation, which were affected the most, what was already good in that situation, what could you improve and learn from in that situation, and regarding which IDGs, consider how to improve. What is the change you want to see in your behaviour? How would you want to behave in the future if you applied the IDGs? And what are you most proud of? And so those kinds of questions that they did on their own and then brought to the session was very, powerful.
And you spoke about, just for the end of Emma's bit as well, as before we go over to Alexander, about how young people were like your happy place, that this is the niche and the group that you like to work with.
Yes.
But people are people, right? People are people. So we're thinking about leaders in leadership positions. This is entirely transferable, isn't it?
Of course. Yeah.
Okay, Alexander, over to you.
Thank you very much for a nice presentation. I have a question. So coaching the groups has different people. So people are people, yeah. So they have different moods and different motivations. And some people are really motivated and really understand what the goal setting is and so on. And some people are struggling with it. So how do you approach the post-coaching? I mean, you did the coaching of the group, and some of them, they really wants to know and keep motivated and keep doing this homework, and others still struggling and a bit reluctant to do this homework. How do you deal with these two groups? I mean, the group coaching, and then do you do individually afterwards?
Yeah, so I think if that were the case, I would do the. I think I wouldn't. I would bring it up individually, and I would invite them to talk to me privately, because maybe they've got some issue with the activity, or maybe they're finding it difficult. So I would bring it up with them personally, rather than maybe embarrassing them in the group or something. But motivation is such an important part of this. Why, and tapping into their why. So understanding what their motivations are in terms of their career, in terms of their why they're doing this program to begin with, why are they doing this intervention, why is this important for them. Once I'm able to understand all of that, I'm able to make it relevant. So I bring the relevance into it. So why do we want to use the IDGs? Why do we want to look and examine a challenge? Because when we take the time to reflect, which is how often do we actually usually reflect on things? Sometimes life is so busy. So when we do take the time to reflect, then we can start to see things that maybe we hadn't considered before. And I think that's what Annika was mentioning, is that she was able to, she's naturally good at reflecting, but using the IDGs was a new way of seeing things. And then having us in a group then helping you to shed light on why it's, what else you could have learned in that situation, how you could have done better, what you did well, and congratulating what you did well, all those kinds of things. Does that answer it, Alexander? Or because everyone, I'm very lucky to be working with motivated people. Generally, that's where I want to be. I want to be working with people that want to learn, want to grow. So if they don't want to do it, then that's tricky. You have to find out, why is this relevant, and connect with the relevance of it.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much.
Nicola, are there any more questions?
I was just scanning the chat, actually.
I would love to ask the group for the next little breakout, if we can.
Yeah.
Who do you think this could benefit, and where could I, any contacts or people references that people could refer me on to, because I'm obviously a solo entrepreneur working from home in Italy, and it sometimes is hard to know where can I be accessing this and serving these kinds of people. Where can I find them, and who do you think could benefit from this? I would really appreciate any input.
I'm just popping that question in the chat as well. Let us go out for, we've got just under 15 minutes for the whole thing. So if I send you out for maybe 5 or 6 minutes.
Yes, that would be perfect.
That sounds okay. Right, here we go. Jen, we've had a couple of suggestions in the chat as well. Nadij says about the IDGs networks as well, and Esther's suggesting universities and coaching. But anyway, over back to you. Back to you.
Oh, I would love to hear what people came up with in the chat. What were you sharing? Feel free to unmute yourself.
Yes, I'm Nadej, based in Luxembourg. Hi, I'm also an EMCC member and part of a local IDG network here. I was just wondering how much you've been using maybe the IDG hubs and networks in your own country or in other countries.
Yeah, it's something that I would like to do more of, actually. I got really busy running the Impactor program that I just needed to pause, but I will reconnect with them again. The one I connected with was the Practitioner group, and that's more of a global one, and I liked that, because the one here in Italy, it's usually run in Italian. So my Italian is still a little bit rusty, but yes, I certainly need to reconnect with the IDG groups, and I want to share with them what I've just done as well, because I think they'll find it very interesting.
Yeah, I think so. And yeah, well, you can, if you're interested, you can always contact me for the Luxembourg IDG network. We'll be super happy to invite you to a small discussion.
Please. Anyone here, I'm very happy to share this with anyone. So yeah, please get my contact details from Nicola and reach out. I'm a friendly person. I'm not gonna. I would love to. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sean, come in.
Yes, thanks, Jen, for sharing your experience here. From Paris, just chiming in with a question or two that came up in our conversation. One is, who wouldn't be interested in exploring and working with this? And that actually drew us to the question of, yes, well, despite the intentions of bringing in multiple cultural perspectives and building the framework, what underlying biases may still remain despite all those intentions? And whose value system would not find sort of relatable this framework? Because it's a point of curiosity for us. And then we thought, yes, young people. We also thought in organizations which are trying to be more sustainable and are doing the outer work, partnerships, carbon footprint, pollution, and so on, the invitation to do the inner work. So to look at their leadership frameworks, values, behavior frameworks, and consider how they would match up against this. And I'm working with a client right now for whom sustainability is very important. I think it's really interesting because they've just redefined their human fundamentals. So to put them to the test of this global framework and see what that brings up, just as a starter conversation, I think with clients, that could be really interesting.
Yeah, fantastic, Sean. Yeah, definitely. But how to word it so they wouldn't be offended, or how to
Well, I would think one suggestion is, are you aware of this international framework exists? And in looking at it, where does it bring your attention when you consider your own leadership framework? What strikes you, as opposed to feeling it as an evaluation of their own? Just what does it? Because it was a very thoughtful, long, consultative process to come to these. So that may be one way of bringing it, and people could have other suggestions, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's why I'm so I'm impressed by the IDG. I think it's sort of like a cooperative or something, a collective, because there's people from all over the world contributing to it, and it's constantly evolving. yeah, I'm going to the actual event. They've got an IDG summit in October, and I've bought a ticket to it. So it will be really interesting to hear what they do there. And yeah, I think it is, you know, what a lot of leaders need is to be doing the inner work, isn't it?
I've got Elizabeth's hand up, and then, my goodness, looking at the time. But Elizabeth, we've got time for you. Go.
Jen, I was wondering, the first time I came across the UN's SDG goals, it was working for a bank based. It was an international bank based in Mauritius. And I'm wondering if those, you know, big international institutions, banks, are more likely to have heard of those goals and integrated them in maybe their values or development programs, and whether that would resonate with them.
Yeah, because you know, where I'm niching, I guess, is that young professional. So I'm really wanting to work with you know, succession planning and helping young leaders to step up, or young professionals step up into leadership roles. So that, you know, big banks and things, yeah, definitely that they would have plenty of staff that they would be constantly needing to develop, wouldn't they?
And they need to develop their women as well. You know, a lot of them have, you know, seriously underrepresented women on boards. Yeah, happy to discuss further.
Oh, thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you so much. That would be wonderful.
Thank you. Do you know what? You did say, Jen, didn't you, that the time would go really quickly, and it really has. And we're at 15:15 already. I can't believe it. But just before we close this dialogue part, obviously we've got networking afterwards. You're more than welcome to stay. Everybody is more than welcome to stay. But just before we close as well, I mean, when we started, you said that this could be great. This is a fantastic sandbox because we've got this amazing amount of knowledge in the room here, and the ability for, you know, just to absorb each other's suggestions. The question is really, you know, what sticks in your mind? What's already sparking up there for you, Jen, that you're going to be taking away from this?
Oh, there's heaps. Is, you know, how can I make the next program better? That's, I really, you know, I need to do a bit of that reflection on myself and look at how could I make it better, and incorporating some of the ideas that were spoken about. Yeah, and how can I be reaching and serving more people? And there's a lot here. It's I need to practice what I preach, which is, you know, reflect and do better, learn, do better, act, reflect, do better. You know, that's exactly, I'm going to be doing that myself right now.
Oh, well, thank you for giving us all the opportunity to reflect and to really think about your program and how we might embrace that in our own work, but also how we might contribute to making that program a bit better as well, and how we might extend it so that the end beneficiaries get to hear about it as well. So I want to thank you, but I want to thank everybody else here as well who's contributed so amazingly to this dialogue. But in closing, Jen, thank you so much again for I mean, I first met you via here about 4 years ago or something. You were talking to your leadership program for young people at that time, and it's brilliant to have you back for GPS Dialogue here in 2024.
Thank you very, very much. And yeah, it's been really well organized, and a great, for any other coaches out there that are thinking about it, it's a really great way to, share ideas, but also create new connections and do, you know, we can all grow and learn from this. So it's a win-win. So thank you so much, Nicola.
Oh, you're really welcome. Thank you. And thanks, everybody.